Good morning to all of you, and thank you all for being here. I congratulate the Vishweshwaraya Institute of Technology, Bangalore, for organizing this very relevant and topical webinar on the new education policy. I have no doubt that every aspect of the NEP 2020 is being discussed throughout the higher education system. I will today focus on the implications of the NEP on aspects of leadership, governance, innovation, and entrepreneurship in higher education. There are two aspects to the governance of any institution: external regulation and internal governance, and the NEP addresses both of them. I will briefly highlight the provisions relating to external regulation and self-governance, then look at the implications and nuances of the proposed provisions. With reference to external regulation, the significant change of NEP 2020 is to create a single regulator for higher education institutions. Let us look at the pre-NEP scenario. We have several regulators in higher education: the UGC, which governs universities, the AICTE for engineering education, and the NCTE, which regulates teachers' education. NEP attempts to improve governance by bringing in a single regulator, the Higher Education Commission of India, to regulate all institutions barring medical and law colleges. The HECI is envisaged as a single overarching umbrella body for the entire realm of higher education, excluding medical and legal education. It will have 4 independent verticals: the National Higher Education Regulatory Council for regulation, the General Education Council for standard setting, the Higher Education Grants Council for funding, and the National Accreditation Council for accreditation. Let us look at the details of the 4 verticals. The first vertical of HECI will be the National Higher Education Regulatory Council. It will function as the common single point regulator for the higher education sector, including teacher education and excluding medical and legal education. The primary mechanism to enable the regulatory process will be accreditation. The second vertical will therefore be a meta-accrediting body called the National Accreditation Council. The third vertical of HECI will be the Higher Education Grants Council, which will carry out funding and financing of higher education based on transparent criteria, including the IDPs prepared by the institutions and the progress made on their implementation. HEGC will be entrusted with the disbursement of scholarships and developmental funds for launching new focus areas and expanding quality program offerings at higher education institutes across disciplines and fields. The fourth vertical of HECI will be the General Education Council, which will frame expected learning outcomes for higher education programs, also referred to as graduate attributes. With reference to the second aspect of governance, that is the internal governance structure of an institution, the NEP brings in a new approach. Towards this aspect, the NEP focuses on institutional leadership and self-governance. A board of governors will be established for institutions that have received the appropriate graded accreditations that deem the institution ready for such a move. It will consist of highly qualified, competent, and dedicated individuals having proven capabilities and a strong sense of commitment to the institution. Let us now look in greater detail at the implications and nuances of the regulatory architecture proposed. What is the objective of this approach? The stated objective in setting up a single regulator is to avoid inter-organizational conflicts inherent in a multiplicity of organizations. The NEP observes that the multiplicity of regulatory bodies creates conflicts of interest among these bodies and a resulting lack of accountability. In the new regime, the distinct functions of regulation, accreditation, funding, and academic standard setting will thus be performed by distinct, independent, and empowered bodies. This is considered essential to create checks and balances in the system, minimize conflicts of interest, and eliminate concentration of power. Thus, this architecture eliminates the duplication and disjunction of regulatory efforts by the multiple regulatory agencies that exist at the current time. Therefore, the NEP signals a change in the approach towards regulation, one of simplification and rationalization. In fact, this is a fundamental principle stated at the very outset, a light but tight regulatory framework. The document speaks of transforming and overhauling regulation, criticizing the previous regime as being heavy-handed and over-regulated. It requires a re-look and repealing of existing acts and restructuring of various regulatory bodies to enable this single-point regulation. Its purpose is to ensure integrity, transparency, and resource efficiency of the educational system through audit and public disclosure, while encouraging innovation and out-of-the-box ideas through autonomy, good governance, and empowerment. Certain implications of NEP, which are not explicitly stated, are equally significant. The first is empowerment. This is true both of the HECI and the higher education institutions that it seeks to regulate. With reference to the HECI, to ensure that the four institutional structures carrying out these four essential functions work independently and at the same time synergistically towards common goals, these four structures will be set up as four independent verticals within one umbrella institution, the Higher Education Commission of India. The empowerment extends to the HEIs that the HECI seeks to regulate. Government will phase out the affiliation of colleges in 15 years and a stage-wise mechanism will be established for granting graded autonomy to colleges. Over a period of time, every college is expected to develop into either an autonomous degree granting college or a constituent college of a university. Another aspect of autonomy is the stress on self-governance. Through a suitable system of graded accreditation and graded autonomy, and in a phased manner over a period of 15 years, all higher education institutes in India will aim to become independent self-governing institutions pursuing innovation and excellence. The board of governors of an institution will be empowered to govern the institution free of any external interference, make all the appointments including that of the head of the institution, and take all decisions regarding governance. There shall be overarching legislation that will supersede any contravening provisions of other earlier legislation and would provide for constitution, appointment, modalities of functioning, rules and regulations, and the roles and responsibilities of the Board of Governors. New members of the board shall be identified by an expert committee appointed by the board, and the selection of new members shall be carried out by the Board of Governors itself. It is envisaged that all HEIs will be incentivized, supported, and mentored during this process and shall aim to become autonomous and have such an empowered Board of Governors by 2035. Side by side with autonomy, there is also the accent on responsibility and accountability. Thus, the Board of Governors shall be responsible and accountable to the stakeholders through transparent self-disclosures of all relevant records. It will be responsible for meeting all regulatory guidelines mandated by the HECI through the National Higher Education Regulatory Council. While being provided with adequate funding, legislative enablement, and autonomy in a phased manner, all HEIs, in turn, will display commitment to institutional excellence, engagement with their local communities, and the highest standards of financial probity and accountability. Another implication of a single regulator is uniformity of regulation, thus creating a level playing field. Public and private higher education institutions will be governed by the same set of norms for regulation, accreditation, and academic standards. This will also ensure that the state-backed university system will compete on equal terms with private and foreign universities. This brings me to the NEP's emphasis on quality. The document repeatedly speaks of the quality imperative, reiterating the objectives of excellence, innovation, and merit. It observes that effective governance and leadership that enables the creation of a culture of excellence and innovation in higher education institutions. It also states that the common feature of all world-class institutions globally, including India, is strong self-governance and outstanding merit-based appointments of institutional leaders. The primary instrument to attain these goals is institutional leadership. Structurally, there are several provisions which enable this focus on excellence and merit. As we saw, acquiring the appropriate Board of Governors graded accreditations is a precondition of the creation of the Board of Governors of a higher education institution. It is only upon receiving the appropriate graded accreditations that deem the institution ready for such a move that the Board of Governors can be established. It will consist of highly qualified, competent and dedicated individuals having proven capabilities and a strong sense of commitment to the institution. Measures will be taken at all HEIs to ensure leadership of the highest quality and promote an institutional culture of excellence. Equity considerations will also be taken care of while selecting the members. All leadership positions and heads of institutions will be offered to persons of high academic qualifications and demonstrated administrative and leadership capabilities, along with abilities to manage complex situations. Leaders of a HEI will demonstrate strong alignment to constitutional values and the overall vision of the institution, along with attributes such as a strong social commitment, belief in teamwork, pluralism, ability to work with diverse people, and a positive outlook. The selection shall be carried out by the BOG through a rigorous, impartial, merit-based and competency-based process led by an eminent expert committee constituted by the BOG. While stability of tenure is important to ensure that good practices that define an institution's processes do not end due to a change in leadership, leadership changes will come with sufficient overlaps and not remain vacant in order to ensure smooth transitions. Outstanding leaders will be identified and developed early, working their way through a ladder of leadership positions. To ensure quality as well as an effective accountability mechanism, the policy appears to rely on the tool of the IDP. Each institution will make a strategic institutional development plan on the basis of which institutions will develop initiatives, assess their own progress and reach the goals set therein, which could then become the basis for further public funding. The IDP shall be prepared with the joint participation of board members, institutional leaders, faculty, students and staff. Another tool proposed for effective regulation is transparency and disclosure. According to the NEP, financial probity, good governance, and the full online and offline public self-disclosure of all finances, audits, procedures, infrastructure, faculty, staff, courses, and educational outcomes will be effectively regulated. This information will have to be made available and kept updated and accurate by all higher education institutions on a public website maintained by the NHERC and on the institution's own websites. Any complaints or grievances from stakeholders and others arising out of the information placed in the public domain shall be adjudicated on by the NHERC. Feedback from randomly selected students, including differently abled students at each HEI, will be solicited online to ensure valuable input at regular intervals. Let us now move on to see how the NEP addresses aspects of innovation and entrepreneurship. In my interaction with students globally, I find that the practical application of studies is well built in their system. In India also we have a number of examples where an indigenous technology was developed by students who were even outside the formal schooling network. Not so long ago, parents in our country could see only two professions, a doctor or an engineer. All of us are aware that result announcements, especially of 10th and 12th grade, were and are still being looked at as a very big event in life. The effort that one has taken often gets unnoticed in the black and white colors of success and failure. With time, a whole new arena of opportunities and fields is well appreciated and encouraged by parents. This led to diversified training and employment opportunities across sectors in different trades. Credit goes to the progress in communication technology that has familiarized people with the change markers or early torch bearers in the offbeat fields. This does not negate the role of schools, however. It does imply that innovativeness and creativity cannot be just stimulated by an institution alone, but demands interest, curiosity, and practice. The most important role in this case is that of parents and mentors who need to go beyond the lines of log kya kahenge and let their kids explore and experiment in life to realize their full potential. Would this mindset change by the promises made by the will this mindset change by the promises made by the new NEP? The implementation of the education policy gives a huge scope for this experimentation. School education would have exploration, discussion, discovery, and analysis as modes of imparting education. With 10 bagless days, vocational education will start from class 6. With internships, it would be more experiential. This will open a fresh perspective of the world surrounding children to engage them in tasks that will groom their mind holistically, to be able to find breakthrough solutions to new age problems which adult rigid minds might not even imagine. Coding will also be initiated from the same class, which is virtually the fourth language for India, which is the IT software hub of the world, and the hygiene factor in the age of AI and robotics. Coding will help kids in critical thinking by learning to dissect steps to problem solving. Not only that, it will help children with instant gratification of being a creator. Who knows, it may germinate early age entrepreneurs. University education flexibility with multiple entry exit options will foster exploration and risk taking. It will free students from rigid academic silos, while multidisciplinary courses would open new horizons for innovation. Think of graduation with physics and music, mathematics and astrology, ancient Indian culture and modern science, and so on. The focus on equality and social awareness will discourage the rat race towards conventional streams of engineering and medicine. For sure, this will pave the way for new age entrepreneurship in India, which will look beyond to solve unique Indian problems. The Skill Up India program arose because of the enormous gap of the applied skill needed for students to be industry ready. Students are loaded with theoretical knowledge of stereotypical subjects that are not productive from day one of the job. The NEP transformation will change the persona of generations to come who will be armed with relevant skills. It will encourage students to become passionate self-learners due to the flexibility of choice that they will have. They would no more be mile wide and inch deep, but rather their own passion will build the depth to drive innovation. It will prepare them for a newer, self-reliant tomorrow. This is set to make the foundation for the next century for us, an era where an individual need not be stuck to a single profession, but he can seamlessly transition, which would be enabled by an education system through reskill and upskill. What better impetus for innovation and entrepreneurship? The biggest accelerator would be reducing the gap between research and education. The National Research Foundation brings a ray of hope. It hopefully will catapult research grants from government as well as directly from industry by establishing strong academia-industry relationship. However, the research ecosystem in India must go hand in hand with entrepreneurship to be sustainable, since India cannot afford to inject millions of rupees into research without early returns. The NEP 2020 can help us restructure the current education system. At the institutional and structural level, changes need to be encouraged in the infrastructure which allows interaction, group learning, and less of competition. Pedagogy needs to be more customized that ensures participative learning in the class. The training methodology should help in engaging students innovatively in a manner that is not defined just by the performance of students but by their active participation and initiatives. Building on foundational skills and emphasizing the use of mother tongue is also an important element that needs to be part of the curricula. COVID-19 has taught us that technology, if put to the right use, can accelerate the learning and development processes without intimidating the learners. NEP's emphasis on digital media is an important step in this direction. Finally, mindset reforms. Students need to look beyond their notebooks and observe and develop perspectives on the world around them. Different sort of exercises may be developed to help students to learn from the communities around and develop personal and collective social responsibility. To ensure that this happens, mindset reform is needed at 3 levels: parents, teachers, and the community. All 3 players must get rid of those processes that inhibit the overall growth of the child by focusing on the mark sheet. It also calls for a change in the overall approach where the outcomes of education are valued and not merely the process. A learner-centric process needs to be the foundation in all these reforms. The NEP definitely gives a huge scope and window of opportunity for all of us to move beyond mark sheets and work towards the holistic development of children. Reforms, if packaged and delivered properly in a participatory manner, do create a positive impact. The moment a reform or change is presented as a comfort value rather than an intrusion, its acceptability among various stakeholders is bound to increase, leading to positive outcomes. In conclusion, we may say that the NEP is ambitious in its transformative ideals and its prioritization of excellence and merit. With legislative and financial backing, the new NEP augurs well for a new and vibrant India poised to take its rightful place in the world stage. For sure, NEP puts us abreast with model education systems of the world. However, the tire is yet to hit the road, and success lies in rightful implementation. If done well, the future moves like social security shall further bolster risk-taking abilities to foster entrepreneurial grit. Time will show us how high we fly and where we land. Thank you all. Good luck. Jai Hind.